Hello, everyone. We are live again. We are live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on my podcast. I am so excited. The last few sessions again have been going so well. We've had between 20 and 25,000 people on the stream. So I am super excited. What I want to do in this session is to talk about my new book. What I've done in the last 3 sessions is to talk about this book, Tech Trends in Practice. And this basically covers the 25 biggest technology trends that are driving the fourth industrial revolution. And what I have been doing is in each live stream, I've looked at 5 of those trends. And so in today's session, I want to look at quantum computing, robotic process automation, mass personalization, 4D printing, and nanotechnology. Let me just open my LinkedIn to see what is happening. And these live sessions are really designed for you to learn about some of these tech trends, but also to interact with me. So feel free to say hello, ask questions. If you have any particular questions around quantum computing, around robotic process automation, mass personalization, 4D printing, and nanotechnology, then please let me know. I can see many of you coming on the stream now, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for saying hello. Hi, William, Latha, Vaznan, Naya, Salim, Michael. Tell me where you're from. That is Evelyn. Hi, from France, Versailles. Nice. So we've got lots of people coming on. We've had over the last few streams, people come on from all over the world, which was really exciting. We've got Manu from India. Really good to see you. Robbie from Baltimore. Christina from the US. Hi, Zita. Hi, Zayed. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Madeline. Hi, Geordie. Hi, Sophia. Hi, Corinna. Hi, Asif. It's amazing. We've got so many people come in: Netherlands, Dubai, Peru, Tunisia, Austria, Iceland, Oman, Boston. So unbelievable. I'm really excited to do these sessions. I'm planning to do these now every week. I've have some exciting guests coming on as well in future streams. So today's session, as I said, quantum computing, robot process automation, mass personalization, 3D printing, and nanotechnology. So let's look at the first trend here, which is quantum computing. So I believe that quantum computers are pretty much going to revolutionize our world. They're definitely one of the key trends. We are pretty early on in this tech trend, but we've seen so fast evolutions in this that this is going to be really exciting and revolutionize computing. So what are quantum computers? So quantum computers basically use these unique features of subatomic particles to give us computing power that could be millions, if not billion times more powerful than traditional computers. So traditional computers basically use bits. They have basically one bit can either be a 1 or a 0, and this is how you process it. So traditional computers have made huge advances over the last 50 years. They have the computing power we now have in our mobile phones is more than the biggest supercomputers that were the size of entire buildings 20, 30, 40 years ago. So we've seen huge advances, but even the computers we have today are simply just traditional electronic calculators that either calculate 1 or 0. And with quantum computing, it harnesses these peculiar phenomenons that we're seeing in the subatomic world, where we have these quantum particles. And what is amazing about these quantum particles is that they can apparently be in both 1 and 0 states. They can be in 2 states at the same time, or any state in between those. And this means we can generate super fast processing. So even what people expect is that quantum computers will be able to process things a million, 100 million, if not a billion times faster than even the fastest computers we have on Earth today. So instead of using a bit, like a computer that is 1 and 0, a quantum computer uses what we call quantum bits, or qubit for short. And they basically can, as I said, can be either 1 or 0 or anything in between. And this means that they can process computer algorithms a lot faster. So, for example, Google in 2019 performed the first calculation on a quantum computer that would be impossible to perform on traditional computers. And a good example is if we look at the encryption algorithm. So there's a 2048-bit RSA encryption algorithm that we're using to protect internet traffic and protect even the most sensitive data in our organizations and our governments. And in the end, this is just an algorithm, but it's a very complicated algorithm, and basically an algorithm can be decoded. So no encryption is perfect. So if you have the key to it, you can decode it, or you could try to apply brute force. So you basically guess every single number of this algorithm or every single combination. And if you then use this brute force, you can also break the algorithm. And this algorithm that we use to encrypt all of our information, if we use traditional computers, it would take us about 1 million years to do that. What we are seeing with quantum computing is that they could potentially break this sort of encryption in about 8 hours. So this gives you a sense of scale here of how much more powerful these quantum computers are. And we are seeing companies like Google, IBM, and Intel that have now made quantum computing available. So they are offering this as a service to companies. Sometimes when we think about quantum computing, so you think this is all very exciting. Let's buy a quantum computer and supercharge my laptop. This won't be possible, because what we will need for quantum computing is we need specialized, uniquely programmed programs for quantum computers. And they also operate on the picture here. You can see a model of a quantum computing core. And this basically has this quantum computing can only take place at super cold temperatures. So you need the right conditions. And basically, quantum computing can take place only at it's almost a 0 temperature, 0 Kelvin, which is about 180 times cooler than even the temperature in interstellar space. So we need specialist quantum computing environments. But what is interesting is that, as I said, computer companies like Google, IBM, Intel, and others are now building these quantum computing and making their computing power available as a service. So we're seeing this, companies like NASA are using quantum computing, and they're especially useful for very powerful predictions and very powerful calculations that traditional computers simply can't do. So even if you think about weather, there are so many complexities in our weather predictions that we're already running the fastest supercomputers to help us predict weather patterns and the weather in different places. But with quantum computing, this would be a lot easier. Things like traffic flows through cities, protein folding. I talked about DNA encoding and gene editing in one of my other previous live streams as one of my trends that I talk about the book. And quantum computing will enable this. It will boost DNA analysis and gene editing. And things like predicting global financial markets will be super powerful as well. So hopefully this gives you a flavor for what quantum computing are. Let me have a quick look at the stream. I've got Manal from Egypt. Hi, I've got Hamdi from Amsterdam. Really good to see you. Kartik from India. I've got Alpa from Turkey. Candice from Africa. So as I said, please feel free to ask questions. A really good way to make sure that I answer your questions on the live streams is to go onto my LinkedIn profile. I always announce my live streams a few days before or a week before. And if you go to my posts, you can find them and you can comment on them. So if you ever want to make sure I have your questions ready for answering, then please do that. Sometimes I've got so many people on the stream, which is I'm very grateful for, but the comments basically disappear so quickly that I sometimes miss questions. So we've got Kaiser from Morocco, Stephen from London. Hi, Stephen. Philip from Liverpool. I've got Dan from the Netherlands. Hector. So your question, Hector, is it true that quantum computing can hack blockchain? Yes, I think the answer is. At the moment, if we use traditional encryption tools like we have, quantum computers could potentially break it. On a positive side, we could, and we are going to, and people are working on this, develop more advanced encryptions that will use quantum computers to find even better ways to encrypt anything, even blockchains, and therefore they will hopefully become safe again. But this is definitely a concern for blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, that quantum computers are so powerful that they could simply break this. Ollie, hi from Finland. Really good to see you on the stream. Hope you're well. Nevin, thank you. Great to see you too. Harish, hi from Dubai. Hello back. I've got Bernardo from Uruguay. From someone from Mumbai, from Myanmar. Amazing. We've got Christina from Germany. Very good. I'm super excited. Let's look at the second trend. So the first one was quantum computing. The second trend I want to talk about today is robotic process automation. And this basically means, let me just see if I can move my slide forward. Yes. So robotic process automation is basically technology that can be used to automate your business processes, especially if they are rule-based or structured, or if they are repetitive. So for me, robotic process automation is that if you think about this as a robot that are programmed to do specific business processes, so things like interacting with digital systems or capturing data or retrieving data and processing transactions and so on. But this robot isn't a machine. This robot is a software. So you're basically programming software to do processes for us. So RPA, or robotic process automation, is sometimes referred to as white-collar automation because it is used to automate processes that are done by clerical staff, by administrative people, by managers and professionals that use computers and digital devices to do their work. And research firm and analyst firm Gartner predict that by 2022, 85% of large organizations will be using robotic process automation to some extent. And basically, the what we needed to do in the past is we needed to program this. So basically people were watching, like imagine a call center worker that is answering a call and then has to retrieve information, consolidate this information onto one screen so they can then answer a particular customer query. Someone would basically watch what normally happens, and then they would program this and automate this. What is quite exciting and why robotic process automation is such a major trend for me is that we can now automate this programming. So we can use artificial intelligence, we can use tools like machine vision and machine learning to simply watch what we are doing. So if you think about this, I sometimes think about this in my own work. So let's say I get an email to be asked to present at a conference. What then normally happens is that I then send an email back, thank you very much for reaching out. Really, I would love to discuss this in more detail. Can you tell me where this is, how many people are attending, what you want me to speak about, and so on. And if I now had an intelligent AI watching me, let's say for a few weeks, and these same emails are coming in, very similar responses are written, what happens is I can simply automate this. So the hopefully in the future, my computer will simply suggest a response email, which I can then edit. And companies like Google in their Gmail are working on this very heavily. Another typical area where robotic process automation is used in claims handling. So, for example, the American Fidelity Insurance Company, they basically said that it has managed to save 10 hours of human work for every hour they've put into building robots are used for robotic process automation, which is pretty epic. And we now see this as in call centers where they retrieve and consolidate data. We see this in things like employee onboarding. So lots of different applications. Very good. So hopefully that was useful. This is for me another major trend. If you have any specific questions around this, please let me know. I will have a quick look through my stream here if there are any questions. How is RPA relevant for manufacturing? Is Vinny, you're asking this. It is relevant because if you think about this, there are lots of, obviously in manufacturing, you have robotic automation as part of the manufacturing process anyway. We use physical robots, but even in manufacturing, you have design. For example, the design function, the product development functions, there are lots of administrative tasks involved. And all of those administrative tasks where someone goes to a computer, finds documents, brings them together, sends them out, be it responding to a project requests about project details, about any bids you need to make. So all of the background processes and anything on the manufacturing floor that requires someone to go into a screen and find something and do something, all of those can be automated using robotic process automation too. I've got Padam from Bahrain, really good to see you. Surajit from Singapore. I've got Matthew from the UK, good to see you. Jean Charles, hello everyone, hello back. And Philippe asking, how is robotic process automation relevant to hotels? Absolutely relevant. If you think about simple inquiries, people asking about configuration of rooms, people asking lots of the customer queries can be automated using robotic process automation. So if someone says, okay, can I have I've booked this room, can I have this as a twin or a double? What normally happens is the receptionist would then, or the person answering the question would go into the system, look for the configuration of this room, and then answer the question. All of this can be automated using robotic process automation. So a huge level of applications in the hotel industry and indeed any industry. I've got Melina from Boston in the USA. Really good to see you. Elizabeth from California. I've got Kamel from France. So hopefully that was useful. Second trend was robotic process automation. The next one I want to talk about is mass personalization, or what we call micro moments. So mass personalization is basically about offering products and services that are uniquely tailored to people, but we're offering them en masse or at scale. And micro moment is when we spot opportunities to sell something to people at exactly the time and in the moment when they want it. So you can and this for me is transforming our world at the moment. That the data we are now able to collect is helping companies understand what you want, when you want it, and they can deliver it to you, and they can even specify it to your needs or to your requirements. We've had this in the online world for many years, where websites, for example, are customized based on your IP address. So they know you are a visitor from Malaysia, you are a visitor from the Netherlands, you are a visitor from the UK. And that means that the content can then be customized in your language, it can be customized to your needs and the products that your business is selling in those regions. So you customize the landing page, but it goes much further. Nowadays, we can customize things like education. So if you have an online education tool, it can learn how good you are, what you're able to do. We use this in manufacturing, where we customize products. We use this in medicine, where we potentially customized medication and treatment plans for people, not only based on what we know, but maybe even on their DNA and others in the future. So there are companies like VI. They are a interactive personal training company, and what they're doing is they're creating a personalized running routine for all their customers based on their level of fitness and their level of activity and performance levels. Or another really interesting startup is SkinMade. They are a German startup company, and they have created customized skincare, so skin creams, using machine learning. So they will analyze someone's individual skin condition and then customize the cream and formulate it exactly for what the customer want, and they're actually doing this in their shops in real time, so they can be dispensed while the customer is waiting. So all of this customization is happening more and more. When we think about taking this a step further, we get to these micro moments. So not only understanding a macro level, the customer and what they might want, but understanding what the customer wants at this point in time. And I guess what we need to do as companies that is quite important, is to balance between providing the relevant advertising, the relevant products, pushing the right services, and balance this against what customers would perceive as creepy exploitation of their data and a breach of their privacy rights. So this is really important, but we're used to this nowadays on lots of different channels and lots of different ways. If you think about Amazon, once you go on Amazon, Amazon will show you products that it believes you will want to buy based on what it knows about you. If you go on Netflix, again, it will provide you a list of films and things to watch based on what you've previously watched. But I don't know, most people have heard of this story from the US retailer Target. They basically wanted to understand a bit more about their customers, understand what spot new opportunities, for example. And they are a customer that sells they're a company that sells lots of different goods, and they realize that sometimes our buying patterns change. Most of our buying patterns, for example, you tend to buy the same makeup, the same hair gel, the same shower gel, and so on. So we tend to keep the same patterns for a long time. when there are big changes in our lives, sometimes those buying patterns change and there are new opportunities. And they realize that if someone was pregnant and is expecting a baby, your buying patterns will change. You will buy different products. And there's a big opportunity because we're suddenly splashing out on kitting out our nursery, buying clothes, getting ready, buying nappies and diapers ready for the arrival of the new baby. And then suddenly our buying patterns change. We then start buying baby clothes and other things. So Target wanted to understand, how can we predict that a customer is potentially pregnant? And they realize that this is pretty easy to do because they might be buying pregnancy tests, they buy certain products that help them get pregnant, they're buying certain vitamins, and these patterns predict that someone is pregnant. And what they then did is they then analyzed this data and basically invited those people which they knew or the families where they're expecting a baby, they would invite them to join a baby club so they can then sell them things. And what was quite fascinating is that they sometimes found this before even families found out. So there was a father really enraged because his I believe 15-year-old daughter received the invite to join the baby club, and he then complained, and only to find out that she was actually pregnant and hadn't told her family yet. So this is when we enter this creepy area, and I think Facebook got into a bit of a trouble where they talked about being able to analyze the data we give Facebook, the way we write, the content we share, and based on this data, they're able to understand that we might be depressed, and they can then exploit this and say, okay, if someone feels particularly depressed, maybe I can push weight loss products or products that might improve their looks to help them at this particular moment in time. And this is when we are entering this creepy phase. And I think companies need to get this right. A good example for me is travel insurance. Travel insurance, if they can understand where you are at an airport now, they can ping you an ad saying, hey, actually, if you haven't got travel insurance yet, here you might want to click this button and get it. Another company that I think is getting this right is Nike. They have created a running app, so Nike Plus, and if you use this, they know how much you run, and they could probably identify those micro moments. You've just come back from a run. They could say to you in a message, "Are your shoes still feeling comfortable?" And if not, then you can have a look at new trainers that you might want to look at, and they already know where you're running, how much you're running, so they can personalize those. They can personalize the products they're showing you, and even better, they allow you to personalize those products. So if you want to change this from a green to a red to a blue, you want to change the fabric, the suspension, you can do that. The cushioning, and they are now even building the capability to then 3D print this trainer and have it delivered to you the next day. So this for me is a great example of this mass personalization and exploitation of micro moments that companies are getting right, which is also linking me really nicely to my next trend, 3D printing. But before I go into this in a bit more detail, I will have another quick look at the stream. If there are any questions around micro moment in particular or mass customization. Fuad, thank you very much. You said inspired by your speech. I'm clapping you back. Heidi, hi from Saudi Arabia. Really good to see you. I've got Brace from South Africa. Someone from India. I've got someone from Istanbul. I've got Jerry from Papua New Guinea. Welcome. I've got Sergio from Spain. I've got Arun asking a question. What's the impact of COVID-19 on the top 5 tech trends? That's a very good question. This week, I actually presented on the main stage of CogX. CogX is the world's largest technology show. We had 70,000 people attending, and I was very very honored to present on the leadership stage together with people like the former Secretary of State John Kerry, the former Prime Minister Tony Blair of the UK, the chairman of AstraZeneca, and others. And what I did in that sessions, I talked about the 5 biggest trends that have been accelerated. So I looked at some of the macro trends. I looked at the 5 trends that the 25 trends I talk about in my book. And then I said, okay, which of these have really been accelerated? How have they changed with COVID-19? And the point I was making is that actually this has been accelerated. Especially if the 5 trends I was talking about were artificial intelligence, that is fast tracking lots of different things. I talked about automation, especially with using robots, drones, and self-driving cars, which has been accelerated. I was talking about cloud and as a service, so cloud computing and as a service, the as a service revolution that is now changing our world. I was talking about things like virtual reality, augmented reality, so this whole new world of augmenting our reality, extended reality, and mixed reality. So if you want to watch this, you can go to the CogX platform, or if you are subscribed to my newsletter, which you can do when you go to my website, you will be prompted to join the newsletter. I will share all the details in that newsletter this week and on Sunday, and you can then find my CogX talk and listen to that again. I've got Edwin from Nashville, Tennessee. Hello, everyone. Hello back. Okay, now let's move on to my next trend then. The next trend is 3D printing, or what we call additive manufacturing. And additive manufacturing basically means creating 3D objects based on a digital file that we build up layer by layer. So let me see if we can move my slides on. I keep forgetting my slides. So this is 3D printing. And so this basically is a process that is very different from traditional manufacturing. Traditional manufacturing is where we take a piece of plastic or a piece of metal, we use a cutting tool to then take things away. So it's a subtractive process where we cut or hollow out our things to create something. So if you think about the structure you see on the photo here on my slide, this is a very complex model that would be very difficult to manufacture. Whereas if you do this in a 3D printer, this is super easy. And basically 3D printing means you start with a 3D model. It's called a digital blueprint. And you then slice this digital blueprint into hundreds or thousands of little layers. And then you basically send this information to a 3D printer, which then will print or spray using the little nozzle bits of material onto this layer by layer by layer. What that means is that you can create completely new shapes, very complex shape that would be almost impossible or very difficult to make using traditional manufacturing processes. And the other exciting thing is that we can now use lots of different materials for this. So this is now changing things. We can now really easily produce one-off items. So I talked about mass personalization. 3D printing is perfect for it because we don't have to worry about any economies of scale. We don't have to worry about how long it takes. It is the same process, and we now use this in rapid prototyping. So companies like Adidas, the sportswear giant, they have now been able to cut the time it takes to bring a new shoe design to market to just 1 week. This would usually take months. We are also now seeing an interesting trend where more and more companies are back sourcing their manufacturing. So if you think about companies like Adidas who've tried this process, at the moment, lots of their products are manufactured in India and Indonesia. This then puts a long lead time onto their products to bring them to the market, because they are manufactured there and then they are shipped across the ocean. If they wanted a next day delivery, it would be great to have this printed right in the country. So they brought factories back to the US, back to Germany, and other companies are even offering 3D printing capabilities as a service. So if you wanted to produce something, you can simply go to this company, they can print it for you, and you pick it up, or they send it to your customer. And so rapid prototyping, a really big trend, custom manufacturing, as I said, and creating personalized products. Lots of materials. So it's not just plastic. Plastic is obviously the most obvious one, where we basically melt the plastic and then inject this layer by layer into the printer. And I've shared some pictures on social media and on my YouTube channel around having a violin 3D printed, for example, the case of a violin. But companies are taking this really serious now. So companies like BMW and in Germany and Ford in the US, they are using 3D printing to mass produce car components. So metal 3D printing. But we can also print concrete. So there's a Russian startup called Apis Core, and they are now able to 3D print a house in 24 hours. So this is a pretty modest house, but this is, I think, showing what can now be done. And in this process, they can save 40% of the construction costs. Cities like Dubai have now set a very ambitious goal that by 2030, 25% of all their buildings should be 3D printed, which is pretty amazing. Another more fun application is printing chocolate. So you can imagine, if you create a 3D model, so if you have a 3D scanner or 360 camera, you could take a scan of yourself, of any product or any item that you want, like the football boot of your child, and then you send this to a 3D printer that produces chocolate, or company that offers this, and they can have then the unique football boot of your son or daughter printed in chocolate. And we can even print human tissue. The Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine, for example, is able to print bones that they can then implant. They print muscles and even entire ears. This is called bioprinting. And we're now seeing this. If you think about space stations, for example, they use 3D printers up there, because if they need a new tool, they can just print it themselves. If they need a new spare part, they can print it, because they don't want to fly backwards and forwards from Earth to the space station all the time if they need something. And companies like GE have actually invested over $1.5 billion in 3D printing. Another good fantastic example of 3D printing is a company called Novameat. And what they have done is they have 3D printed a steak. But this steak is a vegan steak, but it is all based on plant-based protein. But it actually mimics the fiber, the fleshy nature of actual meat. But it's so much more sustainable, because you don't have to let me just see why this is coming up here. Let me quickly exit this. Not sure why my email list was coming up on my screen. Let me just get rid of this and carry on with my live stream. So 3D printing meat, I think, is something really amazing. If you think about the benefits of this, we don't have to kill an animal. It's much more sustainable, because nowadays, if you had the choice, if you have a piece of steak that tastes and looks exactly like a steak, but doesn't require anyone to feed and raise cattle and kill it and slaughter it and process it, that would be so much better. So there are huge applications of this. And talking about 3D printing, I think the leading edge now is when we talk about 4D printing. And this is where it's basically the same process, but where we give material, we program these objects to change shape when they are prompted by certain conditions or triggers. So you can think about if they go into water, they can expand or change shape, or if they experience heat, they can do the same. So all of this is now possible with 4D printing as well. So this is the cutting edge. So I've sorted my screen out as well, so we can go back here to the slide. Excellent. So let me have a look. 3 printed chocolate and cakes. Yeah, pretty amazing. Even bio elements like, so Ollie was saying, even bio elements like liver and human tissue can be 3D printed. Absolutely. So I've got one question about the quality of 3D printing. Obviously, this depends on the quality of your printer, but if you have seen 3D printed objects, they very often have better quality than traditionally manufactured items, because they don't have sharp edges, nothing has been cut, nothing has been taken away. It's all built up perfectly based on the digital model. 3D printing of graphene, as Neil is asking this. This is a great question because it leads me to my next trend, which is nanotechnology and material science. Yes, this is also possible. In theory, you can print anything, any material. There's so much evolution, so much innovation taking place at the moment. I've got someone asking about 3D or 4D printing clothes. Yes, absolutely. So you can imagine. So there was someone asking potential use cases for 4D printing. So 4D printing for me, for example, if you have a running shoe that is designed out of a little mesh that is made of composite material. And if it is really cold outside, it could stay quite thick because it's programmed to put a bit of volume between the different layers. And as soon as it gets warm, it can then shrink those layers together, because the warmth make those different layers or those connections disappear and make make it less cold, so you get more airflow, or can open up the pores between the layers to make it more comfortable. So you could have the same trainer and you wear it right in the winter or in the hottest condition, and the trainer would do the work for you. And hopefully gives you a good example. So talking about graphene, that takes us to the final trend I want to talk about today, which is also super exciting, which is nanotechnology and material science. So nanotechnology basically means we are controlling matter on a tiny scale, on the atomic or molecular level. And material science basically means is the study of understanding the characteristics, properties, and uses of materials. And we are now combining those two. And nanotechnology and material science allow us to produce these tiny little computer chips, the sensors, bendable screens. I don't know whether you've seen them at CES this year. We potentially in the future will have foldable mobile phone screens that we simply fold up and then they turn into one screen. We have TV screens that can be rolled up and rolled down. They give us completely new things. Bendable displays. I talk about longer lasting batteries, and even things like lab grown food, which obviously then again combines with the other trend I talked about, the 3D printing of food items. So nanotechnology, basically everything around us, what we see, the chair you're sitting on, the screen you're looking through, all of this is made up of atoms and molecules. So it reminds me, I need to move my slide on because this is working again now. Let's see if this is happening. Because I have a picture of, yes. So I have a picture of atoms, and when you combine them, they're molecules. So this think of, and nano actually stands for a billionth. So it's tiny, and the way you can think about nanotechnology is not only looking at this level, but manipulating it. It's a bit like construction, but on a tiny little scale, where we try to change the materials and what they are able to do. So if you think about this, both a diamond and the graphite in a pencil, they're both made of carbon. The difference is that those different atoms and molecules are put together differently. So if you put them together in one way, you get a diamond. If you put them together in another way, you get graphite. And this gives us the ability to create completely new materials, like graphene that we just talked about, stain-resistant fabrics, self-cleaning fabrics, and so on. A really good application is self-cleaning windows, for example. So they again have a nano layer at the top that repels water, so no water droplets are ever drying onto the window. You can now have self-cleaning sinks in your bathrooms and toilets, again with a similar material. A really good use case that I heard about recently is a company called Trajet. They are a French startup company, and they are helping the transportation system in Lyon create seats on their buses and on their trams that are basically that eliminate viral loads. So what they're doing is they're creating fabric that they have been coated with these nanoparticles, and we can then put this on top of cotton, for example, and these have a catalyst in them. And this catalyst, then, if it gets in contact with a virus like the COVID-19, like the coronavirus, it will then eliminate this and turn this simply into water or salt. So this is pretty epic, and I think we will see more of this sort of technology. And thanks to nanotechnology and material science, we now have carbon fibers that we use to build modern racing cars, modern planes. So these materials are much lighter, but a lot stronger and even bendable. And graphene was just one of the materials we talked about. This is actually the thinnest material in the world. And what is amazing is that it's just one atom thick, but it is 200 times stronger than steel. At the same time, it is bendable and flexible. So what we're now able to do with nanotechnology is we can inject a bit of graphene with other materials like ceramics or metal, then we can make them stronger and flexible and resistant to things like rust. So we can have graphene coating for metals so they will never rust, or we can have things like bendable screens that I talked about. So hopefully that was useful too. I've got one good comment: nanobots to kill viruses, ? Yes, absolutely. So this is one of the trends I talked about, was this whole idea of the human 2.0, and nanobots are basically tiny little robots, but they're so tiny you can hardly see them with your eye, or you can't see them with your eye, and you can inject those into your bloodstream and they can be programmed to fight viruses. We are a bit bit off that for the real world, but this is definitely possible. Let me just have a look through the stream. Martha from Bogota in Colombia, really good to see you on here. Lots of really good comment. Thank you so much. Very good. So if you have any particular questions you want to ask, now is the time to put them into the stream and into the comments. I will have a little scan through. Someone putting a link into the best 3D printers for 2020. Thank you very much. I've got Rhonda from Houston, Texas. Good to see you. I've answered the question on graphene, on 4D printing, use cases for 4D printing. Very good. Okay, Stephen, thank you very much for saying it's a fantastic session, thought-provoking and informative. I really appreciate this. One question here about nanochips which monitor our body and inform us of health issues. Absolutely, this is another big use case. As computer chips and sensors are getting smaller and smaller, we will have more and more on our bodies initially in things like wearable devices, which I talked about in my first live stream on my book, because wearable technology and humans 2.0 is one of the first 5 technology trends I talked about, and you can rewatch all of those on my YouTube channel. So I now have a little set of videos, and all of those 5 videos will be together. So this video will be available there from tomorrow, but all the previous 4 streams you can watch on the channel. So if you just head to my YouTube channel at bernardmar.com, Bernard Mar, on YouTube, you will find me. So absolutely, the question was having these micro sensors built in to monitor your body. This is already happening, where we have basically an implanted insulin pump. So if someone has diabetes, you can then have a sensor that can measure the glucose levels in your blood, and the implant will automatically regulate the insulin in your body. So this is no longer science fiction. This is already happening. Very good. Lots of good comments. Thank you so much. Feel free to watch any of the other streams on my YouTube channel, and I will be back at some point next week. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day and stay safe. Bye-bye, everyone.